Well, boys, looks like you started the fun without me.
You're all sick. Every last one of you.
We're going to need a bigger gun.
What's the matter? You scared of things that go boom, boom, boom?
Give me one goddamn reason why I shouldn't blow your goddamn brains all over that goddamn wall.
That is the theme for the Rat Vendor, which means it is time for double feature.
Wow, just keeping that strong.
My name is Eric, and Michael is here to tell us what today's spooky films are.
Today's films are Suspiria and Vampires. So two titles that rarely do you ever hear without the director's name attached.
Yeah, well, we know and love some Dario Argento. What's this vampires thing about?
It's John Carpenter's Vampires.
Oh, well, John Carpenter. Who saw that coming?
I've thought for a very long time that John Carpenter is the American Dario Argento.
Oh, interesting.
When it comes to things like pacing and camp versus general technique.
Yeah.
I think that there are so many similarities there, and I really don't know if we did a good job of picking the right John Carpenter film to illustrate that.
Yeah, you're right. If you put this up with, well, the other 50 of them, we did.
Sure.
Also wanted to talk about our Kickstarter. It's over.
It's over,
but we're recording this in the past.
Yeah, so
I mentioned we would do last show.
We know it's over.
We don't know what happened.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not actually over for us right now, and I still feel nauseous. This kind of reminds me, so we're coming back. This big Kickstarter thing happened. We're doing a show now. Doesn't it sort of remind you of that season of South Park where you didn't find out who Cartman's father is? And then everybody comes back. That remember the two-parter?
Sure.
Who's Cartman's father? And they come back.
Yeah.
They come back to the Terrence and Phillip episode.
Yeah.
Yeah, it reminds me of that a little bit. And if you'll remember, there was drastic fallout when people tuned in and didn't get the answer they wanted.
It also kind of reminds me a little bit of Community, where season 3 ended, and then everybody was so pumped for season 4, and then they came back and everybody was bummed.
Yeah, don't talk to me about Community. Talk to me about Suspiria. Oh wait, there's spoilers and chapters. I don't even think I mentioned that last week.
I don't think you did.
See, this is what I'm talking about.
Distraught.
Off my fucking game. The spoilers are. Well, we don't need to talk about spoilers and chapters. Everyone knows. Don't listen to the movie with the films, seeing the movie and then chapter over the something. All right, Suspiria.
Dario Argento is an Italian director who basically created the giallo genre.
You got giallo right, and you mispronounced genre. How do you feel about that?
I'm sorry, those two words are too similar. We've done an exhaustive amount of Dario Argento on Double Feature. We did...
you say next to the John Carpenter film?
We've done Opera. We've done Deep
Phenomena.
Red.
Deep Red was another one, yeah.
And
somehow ignored possibly the most famous one, would you say?
Yeah, sure. Well, that's Double Feature MO. We kind of skipped the one that everybody's talked about for a while.
Oh, God, but I don't know. How do you skip Suspiria?
Well, you got to wait for the remake to be announced.
Sometimes I see a movie and just, fuck, man, you feel like a satisfied customer.
Oh,
you know
my God. I mean? Suspiria is so...
I paid for the movie experience, and now I'm getting it.
There is no secret as to why Suspiria is the one people go to.
Yeah,
it's
right.
not just awesomely violent. It's not just legitimately scary. It's not just gorgeous to look at, but it also has that score.
Oh, it certainly does, doesn't it? Man, I think you just did the whole show in one sentence. It opens and it's fucking raining hard, and Susie gets off a plane. It feels like she's seeing the world for the first time, but we just started the movie, so we're seeing it for the first time. We're already watching the movie with a friend because Susie doesn't know what the fuck's going on, doesn't know what's going to happen.
We're just as excited about ballet as she is.
Yeah, yeah, right. Well, I don't know about that one, but Susie is Chicago-born Jessica Harper, who looks like a prototypical Dario Argento lead.
Yep.
Phenomena and Jennifer Connelly, I mean, they could be sisters.
Mm-hmm.
But Argento has this thing that he kind of forged out for all these movies that would follow, of the powerless girl.
Yeah.
Became really a staple of everything that these movies inspired. And I think Powerless Girl, that's how I kind of feel about the characters thinking about them, but are they totally powerless? Don't they kind of become empowered in all I mean, think back for me. Are they becoming empowered in all the films? Is that can we check them all off?
I don't know about empowered or helped by animals. I'm not sure which one. I don't know if being led by a fly and Ahabbed by a monkey counts as empowerment.
All right.
No, I think you're
Ahabbed by a monkey. You're gonna bring that back up, huh?
I think
a serious fight. I don't think we could talk for weeks after that.
I think you're absolutely right. I think that's probably what resonates so deeply with me for Dario Argento, is that his films kind of begin with an ingenue woman, and you get this, I don't want to call it coming of age, because they're adults. It's not about them reaching a level of independence the way that kind of coming of age films tend to be. Instead, it's about them discovering how much they can take.
Yeah, sure.
And how little they're willing to take.
Right. Yeah.
And I think Suspiria is the beginning of that, and probably the strongest version.
Oh man, Deep Red is totally that too.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of that in Deep Red. Well, and let me hit your other points of excellence on this film. The visuals. I don't think I can fucking talk about the cinematography enough, or the lighting.
Do you get weird feelings so you want to lick the screen when they're showing the interior of the dance halls?
Well, so the interior of the dance halls, the interior of the house.
Yeah.
The exteriors, I mean, start with the interior. We have this completely red inside of this building. The spatial relationships in the opening attack scene and the hanging there, a lot of weird playing with space throughout the whole movie. The slow moving zooms and the tracking, everything's very, very deliberate.
Yeah.
What other people see in The Shining, I think I see in Suspiria.
Yeah, agreed.
But man, when I think about, okay, so I'm not just going to gloss over the term spatial relationships like anyone should know what the fuck I was talking about. Think about an exterior shot. When we think about space in movies like this, the history of horror films are littered with claustrophobia. It's something I've been thinking about a lot lately. These, the kind of relationships that horror films have with being trapped, being enclosed, feeling like you can't get away, the idea of being frozen in a dream. I don't think you can talk about space in this movie without immediately considering the scene with the piano player and the dog.
Right.
You know, this must be the most open space ever used in any film of all time.
Right.
It's and it's just pitch black between these two lit government-looking type buildings. He's standing there with his dog alone in a sliver of light.
Yeah.
And clearly something very bad is about to happen. Where could it come from? Anywhere in the darkness, but it's so open and I don't see anything. And we're building this climax, and then unexpectedly his own dog attacks him.
Mm-hmm.
It's just fucking brilliant.
That's one of the things with Suspiria that, and I know we end up doing this a lot on Double Feature, where we watch a movie that's about, say, witches and go, man, witches are awesome. Why don't people do more things with witches?
Sure.
Now this is, of course, coming shortly off having seen Lords of Salem X amount of times.
Right.
But we did it Sleepy Hollow. We did it Headless Horseman's awesome.
Yeah.
But seriously, when you think about the breadth of work you can do with witches as your subject matter, I mean, it's better than werewolves, and it's better than zombies, and it's better than vampires, because witches are basically your rules for witches: woman, magic.
Yeah, right. Well, it's great that you can go, hey, anybody can have a party with witches because you need so little to get involved.
Right.
But I look at witches and go, really, you're going to try and sell me on a movie with witches?
Well, I don't know. You and I both really like that movie where Tim Roth gets fucked by an oven of witches.
It's such a bizarre movie, Suspiria, for me to be so in love with, because I can gush and gush about it. And you asked me,
witches.
and you ask me what it's about, and I go, "Oh, what's it about? I don't know, witches or something." But it's great.
Yeah.
It's just
Yeah.
the treatment of witches in Suspiria. There's that meeting with the psychiatrist, which I think is hilarious.
Yeah.
They start talking about witches, and she asks, "Hey, stop for a moment. What are we actually talking about when we're talking about witches?" And the guy basically goes, "Oh, God, lady, I don't know. I'm a sane person and a psychiatrist to boot. Why don't you go talk to that crazy old man over there?" He attributes the belief in witches to mental disorder.
Right.
But this is a really telling moment for our show and Dario Argento, because it's the moment where we find out that Argento knows about skepticism.
Mm-hmm.
He just prefers talking animals.
Right.
I think Dario Argento might know animals aren't psychic. I think he just has, he thinks it's more fun to pretend he believes in that stuff.
Or hypothetically to have a room where you store all your razor wire.
Right. God, that is the best.
Yeah, agreed. That is probably my favorite part of the movie.
They play with a little bit of camera stuff, but it's mostly lighting. The camera stuff is the zoom lens that he loves, or the wide angle one's another one. So wide it warps the sides of the frame.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's something we've talked about the use of before. But that's that camera that separates this from, this feeling of stage that I want to get to. She jumps from a ledge and pans down and whoops its razor wire.
Yeah.
It might be one of the funniest camera tricks I've ever seen. As if the camera, that razor wire down there, I didn't know that was going to become relevant in the scene. I'm really sorry about that, guys. I would have panned out a little bit. But you can't ignore the lighting. I think that's the more, if I'm just going to look at, cinematography type elements or visual elements, space is a big deal, and sets and camera techniques. But this movie is so much red and blue. Everything is just cast in this lighting that in the scenes where you get normal lighting, it almost looks out of place. You've been staring at red so often. It's something that, every time we talk about colored lighting, it's tacky if you're not careful with it, or if you're not just relentless, I guess, with it. I wouldn't even say Suspiria is careful with it. I would say it dominates with it.
Yes.
It says, you're going to fucking like this red lighting. You don't have a choice. But I think that's probably part of that unique, this is a movie experience that I get when I watch this. There's red gels outside in the rain right from the very beginning. That whole opening sequence, a lot of that is, we're bringing the lighting right away.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of like we talked about on Glengarry Glen Ross, that outside stage lighting.
Right.
And that starts getting me thinking about, Mamet and plays and what Glengarry Glen Ross was doing. And then you go back inside and the lighting is even harsher. It surrounds and it traps Susie. I think that's when you start to get some of the claustrophobic stuff. That she's followed around, there's just a haze of red, ominous lighting everywhere. This is a bad fucking place that she has come to.
Right.
I think the lighting almost seems to break the fourth wall. That scene when their rooms are infested by maggots and they all have to run. They go to sleep in that kind of common space.
I know that scene. Yes.
And they all lay down to go to sleep, and the light is turned off. And when it's lights out, a red light actually comes on, much like in a play where you would switch the different colored lights. But it's so much fucking red. It's like they're in there to fucking develop photos or something. I can't believe it's blinding, as if they're going to sleep.
Yeah.
And then Goblin kicks in, and I actually think to myself, this is what I mean by fourth wall breakage. I'm looking at this and going, with all that red light and all this rock music, how are none of the girls going to mention how difficult it's going to be to sleep? You know what I mean? It just seems so out of place. I'm imagining being there with them and going, God, would someone turn off that fucking goblin and shut off that light, and maybe we can actually get to bed here. We've seen Argento make countless movies about the stage. Do you think that interest in the stage, one, do you see that in Suspiria? And two, do you think maybe that's part of what makes him a distinctive director?
I think, yes, you see it in Suspiria. The film is about dancers. It's about people whose job it is to move on stage.
I think Suspiria could be just as quickly as a play as a movie.
Sure, absolutely. Well, and we've also seen opera, which again deals with theater. I think.
Don't forget Phantom of the Opera, the unspoken Argento movie.
Absolutely.
On our show.
Dario Argento is very deeply involved, at least with the grandiosity of the characters and the way they move when things are happening to them, less when they interact with each other. You get a very kind of solid film sense when two characters are speaking. But when you have somebody running around being terrorized by something, they are hamming it up.
Yeah, sure.
The window breaks and, oh my God, is that the end of the world?
Orchestra kicks in, everybody's ready to go. Yeah.
Right.
We're doing a piece.
And you get these kind of pointed finales to certain scenes that the whole thing is kind of building up to. And then not only does she fall through the glass, but she's hanged.
Right.
It's these moments that stand as kind of
they're little set pieces. They're very much events.
Exactly.
Every scene in this movie seems like this is the scene where.
Right. Exactly.
You could see there's really no wasting time between scenes. I mean, I guess there is, but you don't think of the movie that way.
Right.
You think of him showing up that day to film and going, all right, we're filming the hanging scene.
Right.
We're filming the oven full of witches scene.
Right.
Should have done that joke in threes. It would have gone better.
We're filming the 30 seconds where we see a witch and it dies scene.
Right. Yeah.
End of film.
Yeah. Not important. Stab the witch. Get out of there. House is going to explode.
That's one of the things that that I always kind of remember about Suspiria, aside from the plethora of things we mentioned.
Right.
Is that there's barely a witch in that movie.
Yeah.
The movie kind of goes and
they
says...
spend as much time talking to the psychiatrist as seeing the actual witch. More so, maybe.
There's a glowing silhouette of a witch. She gets stabbed. She dies. And good thing we killed the witch. That was a lot easier than I expected. But one of the things that is interesting doing something like an Argento film and having, surprise, it's a real witch, goodbye, is that the way the Argento feel goes throughout the entire movie is you're kind of trying to play Scooby-Doo.
Yeah, well, of course. That's what you do in Argento movies.
You're kind of going, who's the witch? Who's the witch?
Yeah,
which one's the witch? Which witch is which? And eventually it turns out that there's just a witch. That's who the witch
it's
is.
The witch. I knew it. I knew it was that dastardly witch this whole time. I knew there was something no good about her. All right. So do I talk about Goblin? Do you talk about Goblin? We can't just ignore. I know. Okay. This is the thing. We've covered Goblin extensively in the past. I won't say too much, except to say that this is likely their most famous work. If I can't say that of Dario Argento, I think it's safe to say of Goblin.
Sure. Well, I think I kind of went into it when we first discussed Goblin, but the first time I heard this song was independently of both Suspiria and knowing who the hell Goblin was.
You saw this as a cover, if I remember correctly.
It was, the Smashing Pumpkins opened with it the first time they toured after they had broken up.
Ah, sure.
It was their first U.S. tour, and the first thing that happened was this song played.
Sure.
And if you don't know what the hell you're listening to, Eric, it is the most exciting, terrifying, nerve-wracking bit of music. Whenever in history have you I can't think what the instrument is.
Didgeridoo?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm here for you.
It's the first time in history that you will hear a didgeridoo invoke so many different emotions that you end up just glued to whatever the hell else is going on.
Well, yeah, you have to see if there's going to be some kind of, if you're going to get it. If there's going to be some sort of explanation somehow in a mostly instrumental piece. It's, goddamn, it's haunting, but it's also repetitious and a little silly in that great Argento way.
Yeah.
Where it's kind of funny, but that's just because you don't want to admit that you're afraid of it.
Exactly, sure.
And then there's the distorted growling lyrics that I love. It's the sound. The lyrics might as well be woo spooky. I mean, that's right. I mean, that's basically what's happening. And then the use in the movie, it just cranks at full volume every time the music comes in. It just won't let up.
So good.
if you were ever interested in what makes a film scary, you want to have a very pointed examination of that. Find a spot to see Suspiria in a theater and sit in that fucking theater where you can't turn down Goblin with your TV remote when it kicks in from complete silence. I have to watch this movie with my hand riding on the remote for fear that I'll get kicked out of my complex here. That's part of where the fun comes from too.
Oh yeah.
Is every time the music kicks in and I kind of grin and, embarrassed in front of whoever I'm watching it with, going, "Oh, sorry, I know it's really loud. I know the music's goofy. Why is it's so loud here? I'm really sorry."
Oh great. So you're gonna give me an ending of haha, kinda silly, sorry about that, and then we have to talk about vampires?
Yeah, sorry about that. I don't know what to say. Do we talk about vampires? What's the fucking title of this movie? What is this movie called?
The movie is I guess called Vampires, but
I've never heard it called anything but John Carpenter's Vampires.
You can't call it Vampires
until we started doing it for the show.
Right.
And then I saw the John Carpenter aficionados mentioning it not in shorthand, the way we might call it Rocky Horror or Requiem or Trick R.
Right.
I don't maybe you don't call it that. But just Vampires from 1998. You've never seen. That's a good game to play if you want to be a fucking film snob. You know the film Vampires, 1998's Vampires? No, you know.
I bet there were 100 movies called Vampires every year since 1960.
No, Michael, the James Wood flick Vampires.
Oh, right.
Do you know the one
with the Baldwin brother?
Mark Boone Jr. is in it. Vampires. You ever heard of this? I think we used to see Mark Boone Jr. all the time in Chris Nolan films.
Yeah.
He gets the variation on what I'm continuously calling the Ichi split.
Yeah.
In these movies. But yeah, all right. So I want to credit John Carpenter right away, not just because I'm going to call it John Carpenter's Vampires, and that's probably I'm going to write the show title, assuming I'm not too busy killing myself to put this episode on the internet. But after making fun of John Carpenter's scores for the last 10 films.
Yeah.
And we always do this thing where we go, well, we make fun of them, but they're actually really, really good.
Yeah.
We make fun of his simple use of one Casio keyboard, what MSI would call my sweet Casio.
Right.
And now we get the score to Vampires, and it's got fucking drums and twangy guitar, and it's rocking out. I think he's trying something a little different.
Yeah, Vampires is firmly in the John Carpenter 90s era. We have drawn very heavily from John Carpenter's 80s stuff. And then we did Escape from LA, which I guess technically counts as 90s, but it's a version of an 80s movie. John Carpenter got pretty in your face.
Yeah, sure.
Come the 90s. And Vampires is a really good example of that. And it's not just with the score. We have talked a lot about Escape from New York and how it kind of has this air of being totally awesome. And oh my God, that movie is so action packed. But it's a John Carpenter movie.
Sure.
It's not that.
Well, and that's great too to see Escape from LA, because Escape from LA really was that.
Right.
He was making the movie that everybody talks about, the first one, as it is.
And Vampires is just that so deeply. But we also talk on the show about how vampires are terrible subject matter for films.
Yeah.
We've done a lot of films, and we always come on the show and go, this is the one good vampire movie.
Right.
Let the Right One In is the one good vampire movie. From Dusk Till Dawn is the one good vampire movie. I'm told 30 Days of Night is the one good vampire movie.
There's a lot of interesting stuff in 30 Days of Night.
You
like that? That was a useful piece of information for literally no one.
But let me tell you something that John Carpenter's Vampires does that no other movie in history has ever done with vampires.
You're about to say the words vampire SWAT team.
No. That's part of it, though. That's kind of the whole package there is what Vampires is if Anne Rice came to America and got her ass kicked by American justice.
I think you're going to have to elaborate a little bit on that.
We have Valak as our what's the Anne Rice vampire? What's his name?
Lestat.
Yes, we have Valak as Lestat in this film. We get this awesome story, and I will admit that I do love the origin of Valak and vampires in this film.
Sure.
Where we get this idea that he was maybe possessed, and the possession went terribly wrong, and instead of the demon being driven from the body, the soul was driven from the body, and Valak took full control as a demon, and then spread his evil seed all around Germany.
Sure.
And that's so Anne Rice to me. This dark gothic tale of a trapped soul who's been, whose soul's been killed, and now he's just a demon. And we get it's way back in time, and you get the whole, it's Germany, and it's gothic, and it's dark.
Right.
So we start with the typical Anne Rice sexy vampire universe. You see Valak.
Right.
He's got the long hair and the fair skin and the chiseled looks and the trench coat.
Sure.
Yeah, let's shoot him with machine guns.
Right.
Bring that motherfucker to America. Bring him to the Southwest. That's what this movie does, is John Carpenter goes, yeah, I know vampires. Let's kick their ass.
Right. I was amazed how much the movie would have to lie to convince people that at its heart, it's not Assault from Precinct 13.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Sure.
It's trying to make a vampire SWAT team / Dusty Road film, but it's Escape from New York.
With rules. It's got the arbitrary rules element.
Right. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's important. Yeah. Or I guess maybe more accurately to say it's really Escape from LA.
Yeah.
But it's also got the From Dusk Till Dawn magic.
Right.
And oddly, the desert rapey captivity part.
Sure.
Not as much the vampire part, although I guess that's there.
Yeah. Well, it's got the From Dusk Till Dawn idea of, yeah, we're gonna kick some ass. That's what I love about From Dusk Till Dawn is that yeah, this is vampires. We all know vampires.
Sure.
And that has that element, but instead of them being these horrific, terrifying monsters, they're the Anne Rice sexy vampires.
Yeah.
And then we get that speech, the James Woods speech in the car.
Sure.
I don't know if you know about vampires, and I don't know if you don't believe in vampires, but listen, they're not all sexy and they're going to seduce you. You want to try garlic? You're going to get,
right.
Oh my God. It's just so fucking funny to me.
Well, because we've seen that with vampire movies, you have to deliver your mythos, right?
Yeah. Right.
So we have dens. That's something we're going with.
Right.
We have a telepathic link to the master.
Right. We have a master.
Yeah. Also, that that kind of plot device of she sees what he sees.
Right.
Which I had to rack my brain for this. I don't know if you'll be able to confirm this for me. That was that the third Wishmaster?
Yes.
Seeing that was Wishmaster, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the fourth one was the super serious.
The fourth one was the one about
mature themes,
a failed marriage with a genie in it.
Right. Thank you.
Yeah.
I tried to give the Wishmaster series a bunch of credit just now, and you just blew the cover right off of that. Yeah, one of the and the rules, and one of the unwritten rules is tons of ass kicking. I guess that the vampires are gonna. Yeah, I mean, decimates an entire team in a single scene.
Yeah, it's so good.
And honestly, what is less than a single scene? I think the film hits its quota for transitions.
Yeah,
in that it's composed entirely of the whole film's worth of cross dissolves. Is I'm gonna come in and I don't know, a couple people die here, a couple people die there. This scene's really not that interesting, and I'm leaving. He's bored with all the ass that he's kicking.
It's true.
Which gets back to that John Carpenter can't help himself, right? He's like, I'm gonna kick ass. Oh, but what about all my characters? Well, I better just cross dissolve my way through this scene.
Sure. Well, that's
got to get back to all the character building.
And that's one of the other things that I really like about this film is even if the characters from a writing standpoint are flawed, I don't mean flawed characters. I mean, right. From the drawing board, maybe they're not the most fleshed out characters. John Carpenter knows who these people are, at least two-dimensionally. we have James Woods' character, who is a vampire hunter till the end, hates vampires, thinks they're gross. Also, he's kind of
Thinks they're gross.
he thinks he's really vulgar. He talks a lot about getting wood.
Yep.
Um,
I'm just gonna leave a little dead silence right there.
and then we get the Baldwin, his partner.
Settle down, everyone. Daniel Baldwin.
Right.
I got so excited. I was like, how did Alec Baldwin get so large and less attractive? Daniel Baldwin.
Daniel Baldwin's character is great because he moves in this weird arc that most shitty films get really easily, but John Carpenter can't quite get his head around, because he's this badass guy, but he's also the partner. He's the Little John to Robin Hood, but he's also a hopeless romantic, I guess. And throughout the course of the film, falls in love with a character who we solely see heavily breathing in a car.
That is,
for the entirety of the movie.
I'm gonna call that that would be the rapey part of From Dusk Till Dawn. I had to take all your clothes off and tie you to this bed. It was really the only option I could see.
And all the characters, and we have Valak, who is just this devil, and we have the Padre, and then his evil Pope boss, who is the new Pope, and he gets to come in and be all slow clap.
Yeah.
And while the characters are flawed and they're two-dimensional, I love them so much. I love that I don't have to wonder what their motivations are. I love that I don't have to go, oh man, I wonder how the priest is going to take it. I love just knowing James Woods will be the ultimate badass. And it's basically a badass roster. Who will be more badass? And the reason I love that is because they start trying to one up each other until you get this it's a domino effect of climax where it begins with the cross. And he's tied to the cross, and he's going to be part of this completion of a ritual that will make it so that Valak can walk in the sunlight.
Sure.
And immediately Padre steps up, shoots the Pope.
Right.
And we have badass marker number 1. Oh, don't worry. Here comes Daniel Baldwin in a drive-by crossbowing to pull the cross down. And
you missed the part. Puts the gun to his head.
Right. Yeah.
Basically makes the move for self-sacrifice and is immediately taken down in a second. Oh yeah, well, what if I just light this guy's nuts on fire? Oh, sorry about that gun to the face. I'm sorry, I didn't mean it.
It's true. But then we know that James Woods has to be the ultimate badass. So he impales Valak with the very ceremonial cross that Valak has been searching for his whole life, and then uses his body to bring a building down and set Valak on fire. And then Valak explodes.
In fireworks, right? I mean, we get vampires that shoot fireworks when they die.
Right.
Of all the vampire films we've ever covered, that we've ever called the best vampire film, of everything you've seen, really, from here to Fright Night.
Sure.
What would you say is your favorite kind of vampire death? Because that is something that varies widely from these movies.
It's true.
Right?
It's true.
Just as much as the what does garlic do?
Does the death of the homeless guy from Hellraiser count as a vampire death?
I don't remember that.
I think it's very similar to the one in Fright Night. I think Fright Night still takes the cake for me, but this is close. I like the eruption of fire that happens in John Carpenter's vampires, but nothing quite beats exploding into a flying animal that then explodes.
Oh, right. Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah, I went through, I think it was maybe last year on the show, I don't remember, but at some point around one of our Whedon movies, I got super into Buffy. And I think, this is how bad my memory is, but I think Buffy is the series that has the insta-deaths, where essentially you stab someone and they just turn into dust.
I love that too.
Which is kind of like the beheading thing we talked about, where the horror is in how immediate and
final.
There's just no long goodbye. It's just, oh, fuck, I got stabbed, and then poof, dust.
Yeah, I do remember that. I like that a lot too. I think that vampires is so absorbed in the manliness that it takes to destroy vampires. There's no secret. This is a little bit misogynistic throughout the film.
A little bit, really. What tipped you off there? That was a dick joke, so you know.
Yeah, thanks.
When all else fails, end your movie on a dick joke.
Yeah.
Imagine if we lived in that world for just a moment, where fade to black wasn't the classic ending, but end on a dick joke was the old old adage.
That if that were the case, I think they'd probably make what I would guess ballpark 5 scary movies in that universe.
Man, that's just a free exercise I've given people when they're bored. Reimagine classic films ending on a dick joke. Actually, that sounds like a good use of doubleFeatureShow@gmail.com.
Yeah.
Is end on a dick joke.
Isn't that how Citizen Kane ends? So basically the big point that I want to make about John Carpenter's vampires before I let you rebut or maybe tell me that you're a little bit further along on it than you were before. I like that John Carpenter took a blatantly American approach to a classical version of vampires, because we've gotten From Dusk Till Dawn, which is an American approach to American vampires, and we've gotten Interview with the Vampire, which is the classical approach to classical vampires.
Right.
And the blending that we've seen is only in something like Let the Right One In, which you and I both agree is probably not really a vampire movie.
Also, and I know this is unfair, it took place far after John Carpenter's vampires, but we could chalk that up to a Swedish vampire film.
Sure.
If you don't exclude it from the pack for all these other reasons.
Sure.
But yeah, that is a very unique take. We could do that thing we did on The Trip and go, a British film, so it does those British things.
Sure.
Yeah, it's a one of them Swedish vampire films.
Yeah. But that's what I like about John Carpenter's vampires is he goes, okay, this is the most popular version of vampires. They're sexy, they're sleek, they have long hair, they're disarming and they're sparkly. America hates that. Let's shoot them with machine guns, even though we know it doesn't work.
Right, just for the pure joy of it. Yeah, the vampire SWAT team, it seems like they would have this totally figured out by now. But they bring in the machine guns because it makes them feel good.
Sure.
It really isn't that what it's all about?
It seems to keep them at bay, at least a little bit. So I don't know. What do you think? Now that you've heard my argument for Americanizing Anne Rice's vampires.
First of all, I think you could sell me on anything. Secondly, if all else fails, wave the American flag behind it. Seems to be a good strategy. So the website is doublefeatureshow.com, and a place to send happy, feel-good emails is doublefeatureshow@gmail.com. What a fucked up place we're in right now, where we have no idea what happened to our show.
Yeah, the world is a little bit darker.
Down here in a bunker, and we don't know what's going on up there.
We're in our den.
So regardless of what happens to the show, we're going to at least finish out the year.
We're finishing out year 5, because why would we stop in the middle of a year? That's stupid.
I think we're far past the middle. I think we only have a handful of shows left.
That's the middle.
So we are going to do 2 movies next week.
Mm-hmm.
And rather than leave the audience hanging, what are the movies?
Oh, man. So I haven't been horrored out yet. I want more horror in my life, Eric. I mean, okay, so we've done John Carpenter, and we've done Dario Argento plenty of times on Double Feature, but I don't get the same kind of gritty, gross vibe that I get when we do something like New French Extreme or old school American horror.
Oh, sure.
Or, something good and red.
Yeah, we usually separate that stuff a lot on our show.
Yeah.
So I was also thinking, it might be kind of interesting to we did some old stuff, let's do some new stuff.
Yeah, so I'm definitely, horror recently has been doing a lot of more, you and I always harp on horror for the genre for being ghosty, or for being
sure.
werewolfy.
Uh-huh.
If we're doing supernatural stuff that just takes me way out immediately,
Mm-hmm.
horror's been kind of kicking against that really hard, except for, I guess, Lords of Salem.
Mm-hmm.
But The Purge, which is coming out, that's just straight up people killing people. And what's the You're Next? Is that what it's called?
I haven't seen that.
It's a movie about a family that gets killed. Like, or it's like a new slasher movie. It's supposed to be like the advent of the old slasher in the new era.
Right.
And then there's The Awakening came out a little while back, and what was Sinister?
I haven't heard of any of these. Sinister, I've seen the poster for. I think that's fairly popular.
Sinister, I believe, was had to do with the Paranormal Activity guys.
Sure, right.
But for next week, I want to do some of those nice sweet spot new violent American horror flicks.
Yeah, I'm looking at our year right now, and I think it's 5 episodes until the very end of year 5. So, I mean, if we're going to get an opportunity to chuck a few more, to have one last good round of, hey, look, there's new things out that you can go see.
Yeah.
And not be so obsessed with the things that have come before. This might be a good time for that. I'm sure we'll be chucking plenty of, oh my God, there's a David Lynch film we didn't do. Wait, Robert Rodriguez still has 17 movies. You know, that'll all probably get wedged in.
Yeah, the worst thing that I think is to come is when we pair Shark Boy and Lava Girl with Mulholland Drive.
That is the point of inevitability we're approaching. Anyways, what do you want to do next time?
I want to do Excision, and I want to pair it with The Loved Ones.
Should we just go into these cold? Should I know anything about these? I know you have talked many a time about not wanting to be spoiled on a single detail, but there is also the option to tantalize people who perhaps have no interest in watching these movies or listening next week to kind of coax them into, I mean, you already said naturalistic new horror films. That's enough for me.
Yeah. I mean, Excision is definitely not, it's a Bad Cat episode next week. Let's just put it that way.
Oh, man.
Let's just make next week a Bad Cat episode.
Oh, good. People can add to that play count, I guess. It's been a while since we rolled out the Bad Cat.
All right, let's watch more fucking film.
Bye. That coming.
I've thought for a very long time that John Carpenter is the American Dario Argento.
Oh, interesting.
When it comes to things like pacing and camp versus just general technique.
Yeah.
I think that there are so many similarities there, and I really don't know if we did a good job of picking the right John Carpenter film to illustrate that.
Yeah, you're right. If you put this up with, well, the other 50 of them, we did.
Sure.
Also wanted to talk about our Kickstarter. It's over, but we're recording this in the past.
Yeah,
as
so
I mentioned we would do last show.
We know it's over.
We don't know what happened.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not actually over for us right now, and I still feel nauseous. This kind of reminds me, so we're coming back, this big Kickstarter thing happened, we're doing a show now. Doesn't it sort of remind you of that season of South Park where you didn't find out who Cartman's father is? And then everybody comes back.
Well, boys, looks like you started the fun without me.
You're all sick. Every last one of you.
We're going to need a bigger gun.
What's the matter? You scared of things that go boom, boom?
Give me one goddamn reason why I shouldn't blow your goddamn brains all over that goddamn wall.
That is the theme for the Rat Vendor, which means it is time for double feature.
Wow, just keeping that strong.
My name is Eric, and Michael is here to tell us what today's spooky films are.
Today's films are Suspiria and Vampires. So 2 titles that rarely do you ever hear without the director's name attached.
Yeah, well, we know and love some Dario Argento. What's this vampires thing about?
It's John Carpenter's Vampires.
Oh, well, John Carpenter, who saw back that, remember the 2-parter?
Sure.
Who's
Yeah.
Cartman's father? And they come back.
Yeah.
They come back to the Terrence and Phillip episode.
Yeah.
Yeah, it reminds me of that a little bit. And if you'll remember, there was drastic fallout
Sure.
when people tuned in and didn't get the answer they wanted.
it also kind of reminds me a little bit of Community, where season 3 ended, and then everybody was so pumped for season 4, and then they came back and everybody was bummed.
Yeah, don't talk to me about Community. Talk to me about Suspiria. Oh wait, there's spoilers and chapters. I don't even think I mentioned that last week.
I don't think you did.
See, this is what I'm talking about.
Distraught.
Off my fucking game. The spoilers are. Well, we don't need to talk about spoilers and chapters. Everyone knows. Don't listen to the movie with the films, seeing the movie and then chapter over the something. All right, Suspiria.
Dario Argento is an Italian director who basically created the giallo genre.
You got giallo right, and you mispronounced genre. How do you feel about that?
I'm sorry, those two words are too similar. We've done an exhaustive amount of Dario Argento on Double Feature. We did.
You say next to the John Carpenter film.
We've done Opera. We've done Deep
Phenomena.
Red.
Deep Red was another one. Yeah.
And
somehow ignored possibly the most famous one. Would you say?
Yeah, sure. Well, that's Double Feature MO. We kind of skipped the one that everybody's talked about for a while.
Oh God, but I don't know. How do you skip Suspiria?
Well, you got to wait for the remake to be announced.
Sometimes I see a movie and just, fuck, man, you feel like a satisfied customer.
Oh,
you know
my God.
I mean?
Suspiria is so...
I paid for the movie experience, and now I'm getting it.
There is no secret as to why Suspiria is the one people go to.
Yeah,
it's
right.
not just awesomely violent. It's not just legitimately scary. It's not just gorgeous to look at, but it also has that score.
Oh, it certainly does, doesn't it? Man, I think you just did the whole show in one sentence. It opens and it's fucking raining hard, and Susie gets off a plane. It feels like she's seeing the world for the first time, but we just started the movie, so we're seeing it for the first time. We're already watching the movie with a friend because Susie doesn't know what the fuck's going on, doesn't know what's going to happen.
We're just as excited about ballet as she is.
Yeah, yeah, right. Well, I don't know about that one, but Susie is Chicago-born Jessica Harper, who looks like a prototypical Dario Argento lead.
Yep.
Phenomena and Jennifer Connelly, I mean, they could be sisters.
Mm-hmm.
But Argento has this thing that he kind of forged out for all these movies that would follow, of the powerless girl.
Yeah.
Became really a staple of everything that that these movies inspired.